Be unmanipulatable. In our videos, we often speak about what manipulators, controllers, and other energy vampires do to keep you down, to keep you stuck dancing to their agenda and not your own. We've even talked about how unseen demonic entities are prompting others to manipulate and control you in order to steal your life energy and to create lush for them. Let's now talk about what you can do in order to deal with this. Other than shielding, guarding, cutting cords, and doing regular energy maintenance, these things can be figured out just by assessing transactions with other people well. We spoke in our last video how someone who wanted my work tried to get me to comply with their style in order to gain their continued association, otherwise they would have to cut me out of their picture, and then of course, they were sure that if I were to get cut out of their picture, that eventually nobody would want to associate with me and my work as a channeler would fail. This has to be one of the most grandiose control and manipulation agendas I've heard in my years working as a channeler, and I've come across a few. It was a doozy and I called them on it. Did I get cut out of their picture? Yes, probably I did. To be honest, I don't care. Why is that? Because nobody knows what your future will entail, not unless they're a time traveler or an Akashic reader, and then your timelines can change anyway. Nobody determines your future except you. You create your reality, not anyone else. They have their own to create. Anyone who tries to tell you they know what will happen to you is overestimating their importance in your life. They are positioning themselves as your God. Nobody is your God but God. And like Saint Germaine just said recently, put no mortal man before you, and with this, he was saying never to position any mortal person as God in your life. Only God is God and you answer to no one but Him. He gave you universal law, that's how you answer to Him and how He works with you. When you remember just that little trick, you can pick off the controllers and manipulators as they appear, because these people will try to take on the roles of your God, the bully, trying to coerce you to do as they feel best for themselves, con artist, trying to get you to buy into a deal that's beneath your value because it will make them a load of cash, dominator, because your continued subservience to their will makes them feel empowered, liar, because your continued belief in their lies perpetuates their power over you, martyr, because your continued belief in their fake goodness perpetuates their power over you, manipulator, by declaring your future a bust unless you do as they say, and so on and so on. There are so many masters of manipulation and control on this planet, all seeking godliness over you, and as you can see at a global level, they're being called on their games. Fewer are believing them anymore as the paradigm begins to change. Amen to that. Watch where people position themselves in conversation with you. Are you equals, are you inferior to them, and are they superior to you? Are they inferior to you? If they are, how do you treat them? How do they wield their power? Are they benevolent and loving like Ivo is, or are they threatening, dominating, or sneaky manipulators? Do they want to know you, or do they want you to do as they want? How do they treat you when you're vulnerable and down? Are they kind and caring, or nasty and sneering? It is all telling. All of it. Most of all, how do they deal with their anger? That says a lot too. Do they go on the attack or take a time out and come back to talk when they're more calm? As I just alluded to, I have the advantage of having a wonderful example of how to be an upstanding person as my daily partner. He's made me see much of what I'm talking about here by patiently teaching me, letting me go through stuff, and then debriefing with me afterwards. I share as much as I can of what he tells me with you. Ivo never plays superior with me. We are equals even at my lower level of consciousness and intelligence. He never holds my trials and tribulations against me or sees them as failures, he always supports me through them. He's always got my back. He has the utmost of love and respect for me. He would never think to control or to manipulate me. He's a beacon of light for me in what otherwise could be a dark reality. Power over others players focus on their own best interests, service to others players focus on the greater good with themselves included in that picture. They have no interest in domination, control, manipulation, or lying because they come from the heart and work with the soul. When you understand that you don't have to do anything if you decide not to, you are free. Just because somebody wants you to do something, doesn't mean you have to. I draw a line at common decency, though, and respect the rules of the road and many social conventions just because they keep order and respect for all up front. You have the right to think it over and get back to someone. You don't have to jump into something that you are unfamiliar with, or engage with a person or parties you are unfamiliar with without giving it time and exploring how the relationship will pan out. You don't need to commit right away. Anyone who tries to force you to, beware. Yes, I got sold an expensive vacuum cleaner once because I saw a picture of an enlarged dust mite. Fell for that one. But I believe the thing is still working, 30 years later. If you're interested, it was a TriStar. Which is another point. You have the right to make mistakes. And to give expensive vacuum cleaners to your older brother and forget about them. When you understand that dealing with people who have a control agenda will only lower your vibe, you are free to walk away and await more respectful pursuits. When you understand that you can say no and you can say no for any reason at all, you are free. And you must understand that you don't even have to qualify that no with an explanation. No can just be no. When you understand that you can have reasons to say no that make sense to only you and nobody else in the world, you are free. When you realize that you have rights, and expect them to be respected, you are free. One of my rights is the right not to be controlled or manipulated, the right to self-determination. Of course, the darksters are constantly on the prowl to send me manipulators, liars, controllers, and more, in order to usurp my right to self-determination. When you can see them clearly and deal with them effectively, you stand in your power. Let them in and let them run their plans on you, and you can fall back under the ether of mind control again. Because you bought back into the program, and that program is that anyone in this world can have power over you. Is that what you want? When you understand that the matrix is always trying to get you to comply, you will be free. However, you must assert yourself and your right to say no liberally. You have the right to say, I don't care. You have the right to say, don't call me, I'll call you. You have the right not to partner with anybody. I let my work speak for itself and people love it. Because they can relate to the work I do. My work is about teaching people to beat mind control and especially the victim/victimizer programming that's being run on us. Ivo and I teach people to stand in their power. If you are manipulated with a message of your responsibility to others, or you are manipulated with an assumption that you must want to be successful, then you have to look at the things these people are telling you. You have the right to determine what your responsibility to others is, and you have the right to determine how successful you want to be. It's your choice, it's not up to others to dictate that to you. And of course, these assumptions come from the matrix. You're an adult, you should be responsible to as many people as you possibly can. And because you're an adult, you should want to be as successful as you possibly can. What if I don't want to? What if I have other priorities that either prohibit my doing so, or I simply decide that I want to do less? Who's going to stop me? These are fingerwaggers, people who throw the book of shits at you. And again, these things are implied in what they say. You have to be able to read between the lines. What is the basic message they're telling you you're supposed to do or be? People assume you have an agenda and want to fulfill a purpose. Maybe I have other agendas and purposes beside becoming a household name. People have an all-around assumption that everyone should just try harder. What if they don't want to? That seems to be a pervasive attitude in our world. Try harder, you're not doing enough. I'm doing fine, thank you. And I don't need you pressuring me in order to try harder. These are all expectations you can be manipulated with, if you let them. After all, any good person in our Western society should want to try harder, right? Well, what if you don't? I had a friend in high school whose father was always badgering his children to become doctors, lawyers, dentists, professionals, the supposed most upstanding members of society. His boy rebelled by stating that he wanted to become a garbage man. You can become anything you want, you don't have to bow down to others' expectations for you, even your parents. I think he's in the military, actually, so we probably lost a fine garbage man somewhere along the line. You have the right to like yourself as you are. You don't have to try harder to win the approval of people who withhold it for the sake of controlling you. And with that, I want to thank my mother for teaching me that lesson. I learned it when I was young. You get to say what is enough, and where you want to apply your energy. That's why you're a creator. When you love yourself, when you know you only answer to God, and when you are able to decide what's appropriate for you to do and how much of it, you have control of yourself. Understand that when you have something of value, others will try to harness it for their own good. It's up to you what you want to give, not anyone else. You have to look at and understand what societal beliefs are. The one I just touched on was that anyone in our Western society should be inclined to want to be as successful, wealthy, and maybe even as visible as possible. This means no matter what you've accomplished, you should try harder. That's one collective belief that's running us into the ground. We're burning out. Another collective belief is that men have certain roles and women have certain roles. Look at roles people play. Another collective belief is that there are people who have power over you. Only if you give your power away, otherwise only God has power over you and He's benevolent. Another collective belief is you should never make mistakes and should always be good. What if you don't want to be? People enjoy doing naughty things all the time. It's up to you. Another collective belief is that society has levels, experts and icons. No, it doesn't. We all have equal rights by universal law, God's laws. No soul has more right than another. Give up beliefs and nobody can manipulate you. Seriously. Another belief is that when someone claims to be spiritual, that they are. That's actually laughable, I've found out. Define spiritual. Can you? Me either. I've heard of people who claim to be doctors but they didn't have a license. Make them prove it. Another belief is that everyone has the same concept of something that you do. No, they don't. People think differently. Another belief is that people who live conditional lives of much restriction can define unconditional love. That's a funny one too. Trying to define infinity from a finite position. Always interesting to see interpretations. You have the right to be cautious of others' expectations of you. Remember, you have the right to say no and not to allow them to circumnavigate your use of self-empowerment. You need to take control and responsibility back for yourself. That way you cannot be manipulated. This is not onerous work. It can be fun as you feel power you never knew you had before. Sincerely, Sheran.